My daughter called me mom for the first time in 3 years. The problem? I don't have a daughter. It happened on a Tuesday morning while I was waiting for my coffee at the cafe on Morrison Street. The same cafe where I'd been going every morning for the past 5 years, ordering the same vanilla latte, sitting at the same corner table by the window. I was scrolling through emails on my phone when I heard it, a voice, young, uncertain, breaking slightly on that single word. Mom. I didn't look up at first. Why would I? I'm not a mother. Never have been. It was a choice I made in my 20s and never regretted. No children, no complications, just me and the quiet life I'd built for myself as a freelance architect. But then the voice came again, closer this time, more desperate. Mom, please. It's me. I looked up. The girl standing in front of me couldn't have been more than 19 or 20. Dark curly hair pulled into a messy bun, oversized sweater swallowing her thin frame, eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying for days. She clutched a worn backpack to her chest like a shield, and she was staring at me like I held the answer to every question she'd ever asked. I'm sorry, I said slowly, carefully, the way you speak to someone who might shatter. I think you have the wrong person. Her face crumpled. No, she whispered. No, you're Rachel Monroe. You're my mom. I know you are. My coffee sat forgotten as my mind tried to catch up. Yes, I was Rachel Monroe. But I had never seen this girl before in my life. Sweetheart, I said gently, I'm not your mother. I don't have any children. She reached into her backpack with shaking hands and pulled out a photograph. She placed it on the table between us. I looked down, and my entire world tilted. The woman in the photo was me. Younger, maybe by 10 years, but unmistakably me. Same auburn hair, same scar on my left cheek from a biking accident in college, same silver bracelet I never took off, a gift from my grandmother. But I was holding a baby I had never held, in a hospital room I had never been in, wearing clothes I had never owned. This was taken the day I was born, the girl said quietly. October 14th, 20 years ago. You're listed on my birth certificate. Rachel Elizabeth Monroe. That's you. My hands went cold. Where did you get this? I asked. My grandmother gave it to me before she died. She said you gave me up for adoption when I was 3 days old. She said you were young and scared, and that you made the choice you thought was best. I stared at the photo, at the stranger wearing my face, holding a child I'd never carried. I don't know who that woman is, I said. But it's not me. The girl's eyes filled with tears. Please don't do this. I've been searching for you for 2 years. I just want to know why you left. I just want to understand. Something in her voice broke through my confusion. This wasn't a scam. This wasn't a mistake. This girl genuinely believed I was her mother. And somehow, impossibly, she had proof. Sit down, I said quietly. She sank into the chair across from me, hope and fear warring on her young face. I picked up the photograph and studied it more carefully. Every detail was wrong and right at the same time. That was my bracelet. That was my scar. But those weren't my hands. The shape was different, the fingers slightly longer. What's your name? I asked. Lucy, she said. Lucy Catherine Reeves. Lucy, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I have never been pregnant. I have never given birth. I have never been to the hospital in that photograph. But you're right about one thing. I am Rachel Monroe. She leaned forward. Then how do you explain this? I can't, I admitted. But I'm going to find out. I took Lucy to my apartment. Not because I believed her story, but because I needed to understand what was happening. And something told me this girl wasn't lying. She was just as confused as I was. My apartment was small, neat, filled with architectural drawings and models of buildings I'd designed. Lucy stood in the doorway, taking it all in with wide eyes, as if trying to find pieces of herself in my life. Tell me everything, I said, gesturing to the couch. From the beginning. She sat down, still clutching that photograph like it was the only solid thing in her world. I grew up in Portland with my adoptive parents, Michael and Susan Reeves. They were good people. They loved me. But I always knew I was adopted. They never hid it from me. When I turned 18, I started asking questions. They gave me what they had, a closed adoption file, a few documents, and that photograph. What did the documents say? That my birth mother was Rachel Elizabeth Monroe, 24 years old at the time, unmarried, unable to care for a child. The adoption was arranged through a private agency called New Beginnings Family Services. Everything was legal, notarized, official. I felt a chill run down my spine. What happened to your adoptive parents? Her voice grew quiet. They died in a car accident when I was 17. After that, I went to live with my grandmother, Susan's mother. She's the one who gave me more details before she passed last year. She said you came from Seattle, that you were an artist or something creative, that you seemed sad but certain about your choice. I'm an architect, I said. And 20 years ago, I was living in Boston, finishing my master's degree. I've never been to Portland in my life. Lucy's face fell. Then who is the woman in this photo? I stood up and walked to my desk, pulling out my driver's license, my passport, old college IDs. I laid them all on the coffee table. This is me. Rachel Elizabeth Monroe, born March 3, 1981, in Seattle. But whoever gave birth to you, whoever signed those adoption papers, it wasn't me. Lucy picked up my passport, comparing the photo to the one she'd brought. I watched her face as the reality began to sink in. They look so similar, she whispered. Too similar, I agreed. I opened my laptop and searched for the adoption agency she'd mentioned. New Beginnings Family Services. The website looked legitimate, professional photos, testimonials, a physical address in Portland. But when I dug deeper, something felt off. The agency had been established in 2003, a year before Lucy's birth. The founder was listed as Mia Chun, but there were no staff photos, no detailed history, nothing that felt substantial. I need to see the birth certificate, I said. Lucy pulled it from her backpack. It was official, stamped, sealed. Mother, Rachel Elizabeth Monroe. Father, unknown. My hands started shaking. This signature, I said, pointing to the bottom of the document. This isn't my signature. How can you be sure? Because I'm left-handed. This was signed by someone right-handed. The slant is completely wrong. Lucy stared at the document, then at me. So someone pretended to be you? More than that, I said slowly, a terrible thought forming. Someone stole my identity to give you up for adoption. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker. But why? Lucy asked. Why would anyone do that? I thought about the photograph, about the woman who looked so much like me but wasn't me, about the carefully forged documents, the legitimate-looking agency, the sealed records. Because, I said quietly, whoever your real mother was, she didn't want to be found. And she used me as a shield. I called in sick to work the next morning. For the first time in 5 years, I ignored deadlines, ignored emails, ignored everything except the mystery sitting in my guest room. Lucy had stayed the night. She had nowhere else to go, no family left, just a dorm room at a community college 3 states away, and a part-time job she'd quit to come find me. We started with the adoption agency. I called the number listed on the website. It rang 4 times before a cheerful voice answered. New Beginnings Family Services, how may I help you? Yes, I'm calling about an adoption that was processed through your agency in 2004. I need information about the birth mother. I'm sorry, but those records are sealed. We can't release information without proper authorization. I am the birth mother, I said. Or at least someone used my name. I need to verify the documents. There was a pause. Can you hold, please? The line went silent. I waited. 1 minute. 2. 3. Then a different voice came on, older, more cautious. This is Mia Chun, the director. You said someone used your name. Yes. 20 years ago, someone claiming to be Rachel Monroe gave up a baby for adoption through your agency. I'm the real Rachel Monroe, and I never gave birth. Another pause, longer this time. Ms. Monroe, if what you're saying is true, this is a very serious matter. I'm going to need you to come to our office in person with identification. We'll need to verify everything before we can proceed. I'll be there tomorrow, I said. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about the photograph, about the woman who'd stolen my face. And then I remembered something. I got up and went to my closet, digging through old boxes until I found what I was looking for, a shoebox filled with documents from my early 20s. Tax returns, bank statements, apartment leases. I pulled out my tax return from 2004, the year Lucy was born. My heart stopped. According to the IRS, I'd earned $47,000 that year from 3 different sources. My graduate assistantship at Boston University, a part-time job at an architecture firm, and something called Westridge Medical Center. I had never worked at any place called Westridge Medical Center. I had never even heard of it. My hands shook as I searched for the address. It came up immediately. Westridge Medical Center, Portland, Oregon. A private maternity hospital. Lucy, I called out, my voice sharp in the quiet apartment. She appeared in the doorway, hair disheveled, wearing one of my old t-shirts. What's wrong? Someone didn't just steal my identity to hide your adoption, I said. They used my social security number to work at a hospital in Portland. They lived as me, earned money as me, gave birth as me. Lucy's face went pale. For how long? I started pulling out more documents, more tax returns. 2003, 2004, 2005. Each year, the same income from Westridge Medical Center. 3 years, I whispered. Someone lived as me for 3 years. We flew to Portland the next morning. Lucy paid for her ticket with money she'd saved from her job. I paid for mine with the credit card I barely used, the one reserved for emergencies. This qualified. The flight was short, but every minute felt like an hour. Lucy sat beside me, staring out the window, her hands twisted together in her lap. I kept looking at her profile, searching for pieces of myself, finding none. She had someone else's nose, someone else's chin, someone else's hands. She had her real mother's features. We landed at 2 p.m. and went straight to New Beginnings Family Services. The building was modest, tucked between a coffee shop and a dental office. Inside, the walls were painted soft yellow, decorated with photographs of smiling families. Mia Chin met us in the lobby. She was in her 60s, gray hair pulled back severely, eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. She looked at me, then at Lucy, then back at me. Ms. Monroe, she said carefully. Yes. And this is? Lucy Reeves. The child who was supposedly adopted through your agency under my name. Mia's expression didn't change, but I saw her fingers tighten around the folder she was holding. Come with me, please. She led us to a small office and closed the door. We sat in chairs that were too soft, too comfortable for the conversation we were about to have. I've pulled the file, Mia said. Everything appears to be in order. The birth certificate, the relinquishment papers, the home study, all properly notarized and filed. By someone who wasn't me, I said. I laid out my evidence on her desk. My driver's license. My passport. Tax returns showing I was working in Boston during the time I was supposedly in Portland. College transcripts. Rental agreements. Everything that proved I was somewhere else, living a completely different life. Mia examined each document slowly, methodically. When she finished, she sat back in her chair. This is unprecedented, she said quietly. In 23 years of running this agency, I have never encountered identity fraud of this scope. Who brought the baby to you? I asked. Who signed the papers? Mia opened the file and pulled out a photograph. It was paper-clipped to an intake form. This woman, she said, turning it toward me. She came to us in her 3rd trimester, said she was alone, unable to keep the child. She had all the proper identification, driver's license, social security card, birth certificate. Everything checked out. I looked at the photograph. And I understood. The woman in the picture looked exactly like me. Not similar. Not close. Exactly like me. Same hair color, same bone structure, same scar on her left cheek. We could be twins, I whispered. Lucy leaned over to look. Her breath caught. Do you have any sisters? Mia asked. Particularly a twin? No, I said. I'm an only child. My parents are both dead. There's no one. But even as I said it, something stirred in the back of my mind. A memory, fragmented and unclear. I closed my eyes and reached for it. A conversation. I was 8 years old, sitting on the stairs in my childhood home, listening to my parents argue in the kitchen. My mother's voice sharp with anger. You should have told me before we got married. You should have told me she existed. My father's voice quieter, ashamed. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know until after Sarah was born. Sarah. That was my mother's name. Who existed? I had asked later, when things were calm. No one, sweetie, my mother had said, her smile too bright. Just grown-up nonsense. I opened my eyes. I think, I said slowly, I might have a half-sister I never knew about. The records office in Seattle was old, dusty, filled with filing cabinets that smelled like forgotten time. It took 2 days of searching, but I finally found it. A birth certificate, filed 3 months before mine. Rachel Marie Monroe. Born to Catherine and Monroe. Father, David James Monroe. My father. My hands shook as I held the document. Lucy stood beside me, reading over my shoulder. Your father had another child, she said quietly. With another woman, I finished. Before he married my mother. The birth certificate listed an address in Tacoma, about 30 miles from Seattle. The mother's occupation was listed as nurse. I thought about the tax returns, about Westridge Medical Center, a maternity hospital, where a nurse would work. She's not just my half-sister, I said. She's been using my identity for years. Maybe her whole life. Lucy's voice was small. So she's my real mother? Yes. We stood there in the dusty records room, surrounded by the paper trails of other people's lives, other people's secrets. Why? Lucy asked. Why would she do this? I thought about it. About a woman named Rachel Monroe who was born just months before another Rachel Monroe. About how confusing that must have been. About a father who perhaps didn't acknowledge his first daughter, who built a new family and left the first one behind. Because, I said, she was Rachel Monroe first. And maybe she decided if she couldn't have the life that came with that name naturally, she'd take mine. We found her 3 days later. The address from the tax returns led us to a small house on the outskirts of Portland. The paint was fading, the garden overgrown, but it was neat, cared for. I knocked on the door. A woman answered. She was older than me, I realized immediately. Maybe by a year, maybe less, but life had aged her in ways it hadn't aged me. She was thinner, harder, wearing scrubs like she'd just come from a shift. When she saw me, all the color drained from her face. Hello, Rachel, I said. She tried to close the door. I put my foot in the way. We need to talk. I don't know you, she said, but her voice shook. Yes, you do. I'm your half-sister. And this, I gestured to Lucy, is your daughter. The woman's eyes moved to Lucy. Something flickered across her face, recognition, pain, fear. Please, Lucy said softly. I just want to understand. The woman's shoulders sagged. She stepped back and let us in. Her house was small and spare. No photographs on the walls, no personal touches, just functional furniture and medical textbooks stacked on a side table. It looked like a place someone lived in but never called home. She sat on the edge of a worn armchair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Lucy and I sat on the couch across from her. The silence stretched between us like a wound. How did you find me? She asked finally. Tax records. Birth certificates. The adoption agency. You left a trail. She laughed, a bitter sound. I thought I was careful. You were, I admitted. For 20 years. But Lucy started looking for her mother, and she found me instead. The woman looked at Lucy then, really looked at her, and I saw tears forming in her eyes. You look so much like my mother, she whispered. Catherine. You have her eyes. Tell us, I said. Tell us everything. She took a shaky breath. My name is Rachel Marie Monroe. I was born in Tacoma in March of 1981, 3 months before you. My mother, Catherine, was 22 years old. She met your father, David, when she was working as a nurse at the hospital where he was being treated for a broken leg. They had an affair. She got pregnant. I felt something twist in my chest. My father, the man I'd thought I knew. When she told him about me, he panicked. He was already engaged to your mother, Sarah. He told Catherine it was a mistake, that he couldn't leave Sarah, that he'd support the baby financially but nothing more. He gave her money for an abortion. She kept the money and kept me. Did he ever see you? I asked. Once. When I was 6 months old. Catherine told me about it years later. He came to the apartment, looked at me for maybe 5 minutes, wrote her a check, and left. That was it. That was all I got from David Monroe. Her voice was hollow, factual, as if she were reciting someone else's story. But he gave me something else. His name. Catherine listed him as my father on the birth certificate. She named me Rachel Monroe after him. She said it was my birthright, even if he wouldn't acknowledge me. And then, Lucy prompted gently. And then I grew up in Tacoma while you, she looked at me, grew up in Seattle. We were only 30 miles apart, but we might as well have been on different planets. Your father paid child support quietly, through a lawyer, just enough to keep Catherine from making noise. She worked double shifts at the hospital. We lived in a studio apartment. I wore secondhand clothes and learned early that I was the secret nobody wanted. I felt a strange, complicated grief for the child she'd been. When did you find out about me? I was 16. Catherine got sick breast cancer. She was dying, and she wanted me to know the truth. She told me I had a half-sister. She told me you lived in a nice house with a yard and parents who were still together. She showed me a newspaper clipping from your high school graduation. I saw your picture, and it was like looking in a mirror. She stood up and walked to the window, her back to us. I hated you, she said quietly. I hated you so much. You had everything I should have had. The father, the family, the life. And you didn't even know I existed. That wasn't my fault, I said, my voice harder than I intended. I know, she said. But when you're 16 and angry and your mother is dying, fault doesn't matter. I tracked you. I learned everything about you. Where you went to college, what you studied, your social security number, your birthday. It was so easy. We had the same last name, nearly the same birthday, the same father. We were already tangled together in the system. When did you start using my identity? She turned back to face us. After Catherine died. I was 18, alone with nothing. I couldn't afford college. I could barely afford to eat. But you were in Boston living this perfect life, and I thought, why not? Why shouldn't I have what's mine? It wasn't yours, I said. Wasn't it? Her voice rose. I was Rachel Monroe first. I was born first. The only difference between us was that David wanted you and didn't want me. So you stole my identity. I borrowed it, she corrected. I got a job at Westridge Medical Center using your social security number. I rented an apartment. I built a life. A small life, nothing fancy, but it was mine. And no one ever questioned it because as far as the system was concerned, there was only one Rachel Monroe born in March 1981 to David Monroe. Lucy's voice was barely a whisper. And then you got pregnant. The woman's face crumpled. Yes. Tell her, I said. She deserves to know. She walked over and knelt in front of Lucy, tears streaming down her face. I got pregnant by accident. The father was a doctor at the hospital. He was married. He wanted nothing to do with the baby. I was 24 years old, working as a nurse, alone, scared, and I thought, I can't do this. I can't be Catherine. I can't raise a child in poverty and anger. I couldn't give you what you deserved. So you gave me away, Lucy said. Yes, but I couldn't do it as myself. If I used my real identity, my real birth certificate, there would be questions. Why was I using a different social security number at work? Why were there two Rachel Monroes? I couldn't risk anyone digging into my life. So I used hers. She gestured at me. I went to New Beginnings as Rachel Elizabeth Monroe. I signed the papers. I walked away. And you let her live with the consequences, I said, anger finally breaking through. You let me unknowingly claim income one never earned. You filed taxes under my name. You created a whole paper trail that could have destroyed my life if anyone had ever looked closely. I know, she said. I know, and I'm sorry. After Lucy was born, I stopped. I went back to using my real name, got a job under my own social security number, tried to disappear. I thought it was over. But it wasn't, Lucy said. Because I went looking. The woman nodded, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry, she said to Lucy. I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you. I thought if I gave you to a good family, you'd have the life I couldn't give you. The life I never had. Lucy stood up slowly. She looked down at this woman who was her biological mother, this woman who had carried her and given her away, this woman who had stolen someone else's life because her own felt too small. What's your name now? Lucy asked. Rachel Marie Monroe. My real name. No, Lucy said. That's not who you are. You're the woman who gave me up. You're the woman who stole my aunt's identity. You're the woman who ran away from everything instead of facing it. The word aunt hung in the air. Lucy had chosen her family. I don't forgive you, Lucy continued. Maybe someday, but not today. But I needed to see you. I needed to understand where I came from. Now I do. She turned and walked toward the door. I stood to follow, then paused. I'm going to report this, I told Rachel Marie. The identity theft, the tax fraud, all of it. What happens next is up to the authorities. I know, she said. I've been waiting for this day for 20 years. Good, I said. Because secrets like this don't stay buried. They just rot until they poison everything around them. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. The legal process took 8 months. Rachel Marie Monroe was charged with identity theft, tax fraud, and falsifying adoption documents. She pleaded guilty to all charges. The judge, perhaps moved by the complexity of the situation, sentenced her to probation, restitution, and community service rather than prison time. I didn't attend the sentencing. Neither did Lucy. We had already moved forward. The IRS corrected my records. The income that was never mine was removed. My credit stayed intact. Professionally, nothing changed. My clients never knew. My reputation remained solid. But personally, everything was different. Lucy moved into my guest room while she finished her degree. It wasn't permanent. She had her own life to build. But for a while, we learned each other. She wasn't my daughter, but she became something else. Family by choice rather than blood. We talked late into the night sometimes, processing what had happened. She told me about her adoptive parents, how much she'd loved them, how their death had sent her searching for something solid to hold on to. I told her about my father, the man I'd thought I knew, who had carried a secret his entire life. One evening, about 6 months after Portland, Lucy asked me something I'd been waiting for. Do you think she loved me? Even a little. I thought about Rachel Marie, about the desperate, angry girl who'd been cheated out of a father and a future. About the scared young woman who'd made the hardest choice she could make. Yes, I said. I think she loved you the only way she knew how. By letting you go. Lucy nodded slowly. Do you think you'll ever talk to her again? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe. But not now. The wound's still too fresh. For me too, Lucy said. We sat in comfortable silence, two women connected by the most unlikely circumstances, building something new from the wreckage of secrets and lies. I visited my father's grave for the first time since the funeral. It had been 10 years since he died of a heart attack, sudden and shocking. My mother had followed 3 years later. I stood at the marble headstone with its carefully carved letters. David James Monroe, beloved husband and father. You should have told me, I said out loud. You should have told both of us. The wind moved through the trees. A bird called somewhere in the distance. She needed you. Rachel Marie needed you. And you chose silence instead. You chose comfort over courage. And look what it cost. I placed a small stone on the grave marker, a Jewish tradition my grandmother had taught me. A way of saying I was here. I remembered you. I forgive you, I said finally. But forgiveness doesn't erase the consequences. Your silence created all of this. The pain, the fraud, the lost years. Lucy deserved better. Rachel Marie deserved better. I deserved the truth. I turned to leave, then paused. But I'm not going to let your mistakes define my future. I'm choosing differently. I'm choosing honesty, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I walked away from that grave feeling lighter than I had in months. A year later, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Thank you." I almost deleted it. Then I opened it. Dear Rachel, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I understand. But I needed you to know that the therapy the court ordered has been helping. I'm working with a counselor who specializes in abandonment and identity issues. I'm finally dealing with things I should have dealt with 30 years ago. I also wanted you to know that I've started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping young mothers who don't have support systems. I can't undo what I did, but maybe I can help someone else make better choices than I did. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve it, but I'm trying to become someone who does. I hope Lucy is well. I think about her every day. Tell her I'm proud of the woman she's becoming, even though I have no right to be. Rachel Marie. I read the email 3 times. Then I forwarded it to Lucy without comment. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Did you read it? Lucy asked. Yes. What do you think? I think, I said carefully, that people can change. I think healing takes time. And I think you get to decide what, if any, relationship you want with her. I don't know what I want, Lucy admitted. Then don't decide yet. You have time. Do you think you'll ever talk to her? I looked out my window at the city below, at all the people living their complicated, messy, beautiful lives. Maybe, I said. Someday. When I'm ready. When we're both ready, Lucy corrected. Yes, I agreed. When we're both ready. Today, Lucy is finishing her master's degree in social work. She wants to help children in the foster care system, kids who are searching for identity and belonging. She says her own story taught her that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who chooses you. I'm still designing buildings, still living in my small apartment, still drinking vanilla lattes at the same cafe. But I'm not alone anymore. I have Lucy for Sunday dinners and late-night conversations. I have a family I chose and who chose me back. I learned something from all of this, something I wish I'd understood earlier. Secrets have weight. They pull you down into dark places until you can't remember what the light looked like. My father's secret created a chain reaction of pain that echoed through 2 generations. But truth, even painful truth, sets you free. Rachel Marie stole my identity because she thought I had something she deserved. But identity isn't something you can steal. It's not in a name or a social security number or a piece of paper. It's in the choices you make, the person you decide to be, the way you show up in the world. She spent 20 years trying to be me, but she never understood that I wasn't special because of my father or my name. I was just a woman trying to live honestly, to build something real, to choose courage over comfort. And now Lucy is learning the same lesson. She's not defined by the mother who gave her up or the one who raised her. She's defined by what she does with her story, how she transforms pain into purpose. That's the truth I wish someone had told my father, told Rachel Marie, told all of us. You are not your secrets. You are not your mistakes. You are not the lies you tell or the names you hide behind. You are what you do when the truth comes into the light. And the truth always comes into the light. Always. So here's what I want you to remember. The people in your life who are hiding something, who are carrying secrets, who are pretending to be something they're not protecting you. They're protecting themselves. And that protection eventually becomes a prison. Choose truth. Choose honesty. Choose the hard conversations. Because the only thing worse than facing a difficult truth is living a comfortable lie. If this story made you think differently about family, identity, or the secrets we keep, hit that subscribe button. More stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew are coming soon.